from a good safe distance. All right.
Um,
And here we are for the call-in show. I am very excited about this because we haven't had one in a little while. Of course, we were away. We were hosting the California mini retreat, which was a blast. I had a lot of fun. There's a lot of shit to juggle at that retreat. A lot of different paths, a lot of different stories, a lot of different delicate balances. And so it was challenging in the extreme. And I wonder, how much of that was just how much I've learned from previous retreats, or how much of that was just, how complex and diverse everybody at this retreat really was. So it was a hell of an experience. But we're back, and I'm excited to get on with this call-in show. This has been quite the interesting few days. I know we're going to have some people who are calling in the next little while. It's going to be an interesting conversation for sure. But I just wanted to say hello to everyone. Glad that you could make it. If you are free on May 30th to June 3rd, so it's just an extended weekend, Thursday night to Monday morning. Of course, you can also leave Sunday night if you need to. It's not uncommon. People do that. We would love for you to join us in Denver, Colorado. We are going to be staying at a very 420 friendly location. And it's got all these games, and there's a movie theater and some big plush chairs, and there's a hot tub in the back. We're going to barbecue, which is always kind of fun. And it's going to be a great chance to just shoot the shit, chill out, and smoke weed inside. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That said, that's really all I got. This is going to be the last mini retreat of 2024 until we do something longer at the end of the year. We don't have those details yet. And then we don't know what's coming in 2025. So if you want to hang out, Denver, Colorado. There's only 4 tickets left at the time of this recording. So I'm just saying that. So I can pass this over to Andrew, and then we're going to kick this fucker off.
Hell yeah. Call-in show that we're doing now. So, uh, yeah, I can check. Actually, I think I might have had some stuff from yesterday on my phone. I'm currently on TikTok Live. Hello, everyone on there, but I'm excited to see where this one goes because we've been diving into the religious conversation quite a bit recently, having some fun, getting some of my own reps in the time because yeah, I've been feel like I've been in hiding in a sense for a bit. And yeah. And yeah, it's just like that focus on any sort of thoughts. They can get you down, get in your way. But yeah, this is gonna be a good time, I'm sure. I'm excited to see who chimes in. But yeah.
It's really funny because your thoughts can get you down. Thinking about your thoughts can get you down too. Right? Like that's kind of the thing. Having an opinion about those thoughts doesn't help at all. And it's just because
Uh-huh.
again, you're running them through the rigorous test of you rather than just accepting that's part of your existence and just letting them be what they are and just knowing what they're doing, practicing awareness. That's really all it is. You don't have to be thinking about how much you're thinking. That's kind of the point, is that as you let go of believing in thought, your thoughts start to fade away in importance, one shaving at a time, like one very minuscule layer at a time. But we keep trying to get to the, nope, I'm going to stop thinking now. Now I'm done. It's like, no, but you can continue like, narrowing that down. You can continue to wear away at that dependence, that immediate need to reach for it. You can wear away at your belief in it, right? But you can't do that if you're resisting it. You can't do that if you're resisting it because now you're just reinforcing it. Now you're building those layers back up. Now you're reinforcing that belief in it because you're thinking about thinking, you know? So it really just comes down to play, play, and you're like, how? Not like that. That's the point. For me, it's music. I had a conversation earlier this morning with Jackie. Always fun to connect with Jackie. And I was a little early, so I'm doing what I always do, and from staying with me, I'm just listening to music, fucking, bopping away, doing my work, having a good time, and all of a sudden I hear Jackie kind of laughing at me, and it's like, yeah, because what the fuck? Why not? I mean, I could sit here in silence and then I'm going to be left with my response to silence, which is fine. Or I can listen to music, and then I'm left with my response to music. But it's kind of like what I was saying about if you're going through shit in your head and you can't shake it off. I like to go for a walk. Why? Well, because I can't really do anything about the thinking. But while I'm going through it, at least I'm getting some exercise.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It kind of reminds me of doing like on road trips. Anytime I did a road trip, it would yeah, there wouldn't be anything else to do. And so it's just an opportunity to kind of like cycle through, kind of like, meditation was for a while, but now it's just like, you know, life. It's not these like thoughts. It's like there's I don't know, they feel like, more something, like there's more pull in a sense sometimes, but it's just, yeah, it's just, and again, the opinion about them, doubling down on that. And then, yeah, and then having some idea of what is even happening, like trying to get some semblance of like an idea of what's going on instead of just jumping in. But I do see that we have.
Yes, but I wanted to mention because we haven't actually announced the link yet, she's cheating. Um, we have a call-in show happening, which means that if you would like to join us on the screen for up to 10 minutes, you can do so by going to dualisticulity.com/live. There you will find a form agreeing that you're going to be on a podcast episode, which means after the fact, people are going to be listening to you. You are going to be recorded for posterity, as it were. And so you must agree to that through the form, and then you will be provided with a link as well as some phone numbers for the United States. If you are in the United States and you want to use Zoom via phone, and you can do that. And then you can join us and you'll be in the queue and you can talk to us for up to 10 minutes, which means you can say your piece. If you would like to, if you'd like to ask questions, if you would like to just, sit and proselytize, you can do that as well. If you'd like to engage in a meaningful conversation, happy to do that. If you would just like to criticize, as long as you're respectful about it, we don't mind whatsoever. But please keep in mind that it's not just us. There's an audience here, and it's not just the audience that's watching live, it's the audience that's going to be watching after the fact. And so we do try to maintain a certain degree of at least decorum and humor. We try to keep things light. If you can't do that, don't call. More or less, that's it. And if you can do that, definitely call because this is going to be a fun show. We love to have conversations with all kinds of people. But that said, we do have somebody in the queue. As Andrew said, it's one of our co-hosts, Amanda, who is live every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Dualistic Unity Real with Jackie, who I was just talking about earlier. So I'm just going to shut the fuck up and let Amanda into the room.
All right. Excited for this. Yeah. D reels on Fridays. Fantastic time, but excited to see where this one goes. And it's yeah. Amanda, what is up? How you doing?
Hi. I love that cheating has come into question, questioning my integrity. It's like, you know,
Yeah,
is
but
it
you
cheating?
always work the system, so it's something to take pride in, right?
Is it cheating if I'm working the system? What am I cheating? I'm seeing an opportunity and making the most of it.
That's all you can do,
Oh
right?
my goodness, but absolutely. I am running on a high today for sure. I have been kicking butt left and right. And today was especially good for work and personal reasons. And so we've got our hands in so many pots and none of them are burning. And I'm like, fuck yes. Um, but what I had put in the thing, like, what do you want to talk about? Is just like just getting over it. And that was like more like an inside joke to myself because it's just getting over it is a one-step process, right? It's not that you have to change. If I'm upset with your behavior and that's what I have to get over, is no, it's I get over my attachment. I get over my idea. So getting over it just includes me getting over my fucking self. So I love that. That's it. That's getting over it. You don't have to do anything, actually. You could just do exactly what you're doing. Don't change a damn thing. And getting over it is a one-step internal process that does not require assistance, in my opinion.
Mm-mm, really doesn't. Because, yeah, there's this foundation of yourself too, and getting over this idea that you're at all separate from anything. You got to maintain this perspective that, you know, you're something that can even act in control without consequences too. Like that you can do things that doesn't have impact everywhere else. And so, yeah, looking at that, it's like, okay, what is myself exactly? Like, is it my thoughts? Is it my choices? Is it my decisions? Is it just the flesh? Is it just the bones? Is it just this brain? It's like you start wondering about that. It's like, well, what do I mean by myself exactly? Is it myself right now? Is it myself yesterday? Is it myself next year? It's like, well, yeah, but like the self part, which part's that? It's like, oh, it's just a story. It's just a story that has a number of components involved in it as well. And there's a number of things, because there's a lot of things in reality too that reinforce that story, you know, going on. And so, yeah, getting over yourself is getting over all of it.
Oh yeah. And it makes it seems almost like painfully simple. Like, I'm just like, wait, so you mean they could be a jerk? I could think that they're a jerk, but they don't actually have to stop acting like a jerk for me not to feel offended. Really? Really? That's what it's been this whole time. So I was getting offended and that was not required. And the way that I kind of this clicked for me when I was a little bit younger was that I would give passes for the things that I would criticize to like best friends, right? So somebody would blow me off for plans. Somebody would insult me, make a joke at my expense. Someone would talk over me in a conversation. Someone would any of these examples, right? And I wouldn't let certain people do that, but I would let friends do that, and it was no problem. In fact, it was almost encouraged, like them, making a joke at my expense, talking over me. I'll be quiet, Amanda. Like just like straight up doing that or shushing me. Shh, shh, Amanda, I'm not. Give me a minute. And I would get so upset when people would do that. And yet I would never get, I would not never, it was rare that I would get upset if a friend would do something like that. And it was only because I put them in this group that I allowed that behavior to come from. And so then it was like, oh, so it's not necessarily the behavior that I have a problem with. It's the idea of the person that I have a problem with. Because how is it that the same action could be done by two different people and yet I only have a problem when one of them do it? And so that kind of gave me a reality check that it wasn't that I had a problem with people, is that I took offense if someone that I judged to not be allowed to do that behavior did it to me, and me taking it personally. And then it almost felt like I felt so free. So it was like, someone could talk over me, someone could make a joke at my expense, someone could do all those things, and it wouldn't matter because I didn't take it to mean anything about me. And so it just felt like you could do whatever you want. And then it clicked later on that none of this is personal. Oh, I'm so glad I had the first I'm so glad I had the first wave of like people's behavior isn't necessarily the problem. It's my thought about their behavior that becomes my problem. So I'm so glad that I thought that first before realizing none of the shit that they were doing anyways was personal, because it just felt like, oh, all right. So I'm so glad I'm not upset that they did that, because they weren't even doing that. In particular to me, it wasn't specifically against me anyways, right? Like they were just thinking about themselves. They're just trying to do their best. And most of the time, people are terrified. So it's really hard to get upset with someone else when you understand to some degree that what they're doing has nothing to do with you. And it's only because this is what they think they need to do to protect themselves because they're so terrified. And so, how do you get mad at somebody who's just trying to protect themselves? Someone who's terrified. How do you get mad at somebody who is not intentionally trying to screw you over, but is just trying to protect themselves because they feel like they're in danger?
You don't, but you keep in mind that they're dangerous. Like that's kind of the point, is not to judge them, but to recognize where they're at. And this is why, again, like a drowning person will pull someone else down in their panic. And so you almost have to be like, hey, hey, I'm here. I'm here. Calm the fuck down. And I will help as much I can, but you need to calm down. Otherwise, we can't have a conversation. We can't swim together unless you calm down. But that's the point, is that we're dealing with fear. and we all know it because we experience it and we feel it every day. This is why it's such an interesting thing, like even on the extreme end, because I know, like, I get it. People, they like their atrocities. They're like, yeah, okay, understand where people are coming from. Don't judge them. What if they attack you? You defend yourself. Then you defend yourself, but you don't do it with malice. You're not doing it because they're evil, which is way more likely to make it extreme, right? Like you're not doing it because it's personal. You're doing it because this person is going through a period where they're so self-involved, they don't recognize the damage that they're causing. But you can only deal with that with a clear mind. Otherwise you end up lost in the same stupid shit because you become afraid of them. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to be afraid if somebody attacks you. Of course you are. But that's the point, is to be able to be afraid and continue to act regardless. Because everything that we do from every interaction, and a fight is an extreme example, is a spectrum of how we respond to fear. We can stand there and we can face it, right? And then at least we're looking at what's coming. We can cover ourselves up and then we just get pummeled, or we can run away. And sometimes that'll work, sometimes it won't. And so it's all a response to that, every interaction. Whether it's going into an interview or going on your first date or anything. And I'm not saying going on a first date like it's a fight. What I'm saying is go on a first date with all of your attention. Right? It's a different set of tools that you're using, but it's just as much you interacting with that moment. And it's the quality of your attention that really makes the difference.
So that's all we got at the end of the day, is the quality of our attention and how much we take in and how much we're willing to look at and not close our eyes to, and not like, oh, saw a bit of that and makes me uncomfortable, and so I'm not gonna keep looking at that. Like, no, keep looking, because that's how you build that strength. That's how you do things. Like, that's how you take actions that actually make sense, is by continuing to look, is by not running away, not covering up. Because if you are in a fight and something's coming at you, closing your eyes, it's like it's still going to hit you, whether you close your eyes or not. So you might as well give yourself a chance, you know, and keep them open and keep looking, because to keep them open, you got to keep looking, and to keep looking, you got to keep them open. And so make sure you keep them open, because otherwise it's gonna, yeah, there's a whole whole mighty thing that may play out if you don't keep them open, that you just do to yourself. It's just, it's like we keep tabs on ourselves, checks for how we're doing with things. Like, you can feel how you're doing. It's like, that you're just fucking saying it. A tree by the fruit, a tree by the fruit it bears. And so it's really not about any sort of thoughts that we're doing whatsoever. It's all application. It's all action. That's a lot closer to what you are than any sort of thought or idea.
Mhm. Absolutely. And it's it's a lot harder to pay attention when you are terrified. And it's almost like fear zooms in and all it sees are potential threats. And so it's so hard to pay attention to anything else when you feel so scared. And as much as, extreme examples or not, like, your fear isn't a fact. When if someone is attacking you, you're not scared that someone is going to attack you. You're in the midst of that. You're scared that you're going to say the wrong thing on the first date. That hasn't happened yet. So usually you're scared about what's going to happen. But I've been in physical fights, and as much as I felt afraid before, when I'm in the middle of a fight, in my experience, I was too in that moment to be afraid. I was paying attention. I'm trying to duck. I'm trying to gain leverage, right? And so in the midst of that moment, I didn't necessarily feel fear. At least that's not what I remember. So usually you're afraid of what's going to happen. When shit's hitting the fan, you're too busy getting covered in shit to be scared of the shit. So so that's something to keep in mind. But just if you are feeling afraid, just consider that that's taking away some of your attention. And if you can just realize that your fear is worried about something that could happen, you can zoom out. And the less afraid you feel, the easier it is to just pay attention to what's happening. And that's going to give you the best chance to just pivot with the least amount of resistance or the least amount of dragging. So, it's not that I'm not going to feel afraid. It's just that fear doesn't help me pay more attention. It makes it harder to. So just keep that in mind, because it's just not the reality that you're in. It's usually the reality that you are afraid is going to happen.
Yeah, because you're afraid, you're looking at a fear, and it's just one potential. It's like, just because something else that isn't crazy or is crazy won't happen, but like at least be paying attention to it so you can be there involved in it. Because like all the all fear is like cherry picking one little potential and focusing on that with no guarantees, no certainty whatsoever. But it's a can be a very strong distraction. The focus on something that could, because that's all they are, is potentials. Like from right now, there's a lot of potentials. You never know how something's going to play out. What you say, what you share, what you do, you don't know how it's looked at. And so looking at, anything beyond this, even, it's like there's a lot of variations of things playing out. So to focus on any of them, it's like that's just picking one just as a means of distracting from right now. It's like, oh, yeah, exactly. It's like, whoa, huh, eh. And then it's acting based on looking at that and being like, that could be it. So therefore, it's likely it. And it's just like a single strand in this like fucking plethora, eternal, like one of those things where it zooms out and it's like I don't know, like a office space or something. You got a little square here. It's like 10 computers in a cube, or like let's say 50 even. And then it zooms out and it's another and it's another and it's another and it's another and it's another. And it's this whole thing where you don't even notice. And it's just one of those little computers that's like one of the potentials for any moment ever. Because like any of that stuff is fleeting as well. And so, yeah, you zoom out and it's like, oh wow, that specific thing was just that potential right there. Like, is that worth paying attention to over just paying attention to where you're at, paying attention to what's actually happening? Because like taking that in, there can be quite a bit there, but you can't keep looking at all of it if you keep looking away every time something feels a little bit uncomfortable.
Exactly. Now, I just wanted to mention, because I know we're at the end of the 10-minute time thing. If you're free, we'd love for you to hang around. But that said, if anybody else is out there, and I know you're out there, I know you're listening right now, jump on the call, dualisticunity.com/live. And then you can come onto the chat for like 10 minutes. We'll shoot the breeze, talk about, I don't know, whatever the fuck you want to talk about. You don't even have to know what you want to talk about. Let's just talk, spend some time together, because I think that's, kind of something I find it really important to remember, like without all the drama in your head, we really are just kind of here together. It's fucking obvious. Like when you get out of your head, you're just like, oh, it's almost like you're just looking around at people who are all just standing there going, well, what do we do now? Right. And it's because so much of their shit is drama. Right. So much of their shit is the narrative in their head where they're trying to be more and trying to get somewhere because the shit that their parents taught them and all that conditioning, and all that stuff. Like it's just funny. But if you were to take all of that away, all of a sudden you'd have a planet full of people all standing around going, oh, hey, I didn't even see you there. I was so busy getting caught up in my shit. And so that's kind of the world to me. It is, I'm standing here and I'm looking around at a bunch of people who are caught up in their shit. And the only thing that's different is the spectrum. The ones who are really caught up in their shit are practically walking around talking to themselves, out loud without any sensitivity to the conversation that's actually happening. And then the rest of them are kind of looking around going, hello? And then touching base with you as much as they can and then getting lost in their shit and then kind of snapping out of it and going, oh, fuck, hey, oh, we're back. And that's those moments of clarity, but it's only because of the confusion. It's only because of the avoidance of the reality of being here, where we're responsible, where we have to figure shit out. And we forget that. Like we just get so caught up in the world of routine, and that's kind of the nice thing about our quote unquote society is that it is really just a collection of habits. Right? It's a collection of habits that we've been doing an awful long time, and as they take root, we don't question any of them. Right? Unless they start to create a consequence, and then we quickly replace that with another habit. And it's just because we don't want to stop thinking about ourselves. Because, if we did, we'd be left back here. And where we have to figure things out. But that's our problem in a lot of ways, is that, that level of responsibility changes everything that we do. Right? It's easy to go, there's a good and evil. There's a right and a wrong. There is, an absolute truth. There's all that. Because immediately, you don't actually have to be thinking about anything anymore. Right? You can just settle on it. That person did something I don't like. They're evil. That's wrong. That's bad. Why? Well, you wouldn't like it. That's not what I asked. Right? Like a forest fire to everyone involved is a bad thing, except to the planet, which renews itself from doing so. So we can argue about what's right and wrong, but that's really a subjective thing. We can recognize what's destructive. We can recognize what's insensitive. We can recognize what's ignorant. And that's a different fucking problem, isn't it? Because fighting against evil is really just a way for you to stand on the idea that you're good, by contrast to your perceived evil. But if it's about insensitivity, if it's about a lack of empathy, if it's about ignorance, then it's just about other people who are really caught up in their shit. And they're walking around the earth, lashing out wildly in terror and hurting everyone else. And we can't see them because we're too busy fucking lashing out in fear of them because we keep labeling them as evil.
It's a bit of a cop out just to say that things are so black and white, evil and good, and it's just like because what that black and white perspective is missing is context, right? We've been talking about religion and the Bible a lot lately, and it's like, in the commandments, it's like, thou shalt not murder unless a man breaks into thy house and tries to take thy beer, then you shoot him down with a shotgun, and it's a pass. It's okay. That's when murder's all right. You can't steal, but if you're trying to feed your little sister and you're both homeless, then stealing is okay. It's like, okay, so it's not just bad, it's not just good. There's context, and that's why I don't. It's not as easy for me to say that something is evil. I haven't thought that something is evil in quite a while, and it's just because I'm not understanding the context. I'm not understanding what drove someone to do something like that. It's like, I'm not trying to jump towards the punishment. I don't think that if we have harsher punishments, we're not going to have people committing quote unquote crimes. It's what drives someone to feel so desperate. And it's usually that fear and desperation and panic. And anybody can feel those feelings. We all feel those feelings on a daily basis. And that's in the extremes, right? Because let's bring this back down to like day-to-day reality. Most times you're not avenging someone. You're not on a quest, trying to right some giant wrong. Usually you're getting offended over the smallest things. Someone didn't call you. Someone didn't hang out with you. Someone said something and you thought that they were judgmental. And it's just not as not as black and white as we want it to be, because you'd rather someone just be evil because it makes it easy. It just makes it simple. You're just evil and you do things that I don't like, and you only do that because you're evil. It's like, no, I do things that you don't like and you judge that you don't like them. It's same thing with the example that I gave about friends who were doing behaviors that I would judge when someone would do them, but I wouldn't judge it when they would do them. My family and friends are pretty harsh according to a lot of other people, but for me that's normal, right? Like it doesn't matter if they're like, oh, stop being such a stupid bitch. And I've heard my family say that to me in such a way that like it put a smile on my face. Like, you're right, I was being a little silly. And they straight up said a derogatory two derogatory terms back to back to me. And I'm chuckling, and it's that we would like our life to be this grand journey where people are doing these horrible, huge things. And it's not, it's a lot of little things that we're complaining about. It's a lot of little things that we're getting upset about. And I'm usually crying over nothing. That's what makes it so funny when I realize it's like, okay, all right, well, they weren't really thinking about me. It wasn't personal, but you pay attention, right? So let's say it's toxic behavior and we're talking about a family member. Just because you know it's not personal, just because you know that they're in fear, doesn't mean that you're supposed to stick around and just endure that because you understand it's not personal. It's that you can pay attention and you can decide to be around certain behaviors and you can decide to leave. Because for the most part, a lot of us have a lot of flexibility, especially in the States, especially in my area of New England. It's like it's a very liberal blue area. So for the most part, you have a lot of flexibility. So if you don't like something, just change it. You don't like something, walk away. You want to hang out with somebody, call them. You don't want to you don't want to hang out with them, don't call them. It's really that simple. And in the same thing with family, it's just that we think you're supposed to hang out with certain people because of history or and these habits that we say that are traditions. And so I have to maintain this habit because we have labeled it a tradition. And so it must be maintained. Excuse me? No. If it doesn't make sense, and maybe let me rephrase that. If I don't want to repeat that behavior, I don't have to just because a lot of people around me are repeating that behavior. It's up to me because at the end of the day, I have to live with my choices. And regardless of what someone else feels, how someone takes offense to what I do or don't do, I live with my choices and I live with myself. And so it doesn't upset me if someone doesn't like something because there are better things that we could be doing with our time besides thinking about what we like and don't.
Yeah, because those two things certainly get quite in the way, and those are very habitual as well. Even something that you like, look at a food menu, for example, something you typically like or don't like. It's like that's a brand new thing on that menu right there. That could be a different version that you're not quite sure of. And so the likes and don't likes become this sort of like when you're willing to look at that and like what you want, what you think is like the personal sort of perspectives on choices and decisions that you make, and that's not the driving force anymore. It's like a whole world can open up because that's kind of the thing that's like, well, this, but this, and if this happens, and there's because there's overlap with everything that we do. And so if there's a certain even like sensation in your body that usually triggers some sort of thing, it's like if you're not always if you're recognizing that like always doing basing your life off of what you want and don't want, likes and dislikes, isn't necessary, then there's opportunity to see that in a lot of different ways. But it starts with you looking at that. Because then anything in the world or in reality, like, doesn't have that same sway as it's not your foundational decision making factor is just comfortable, uncomfortable, like, don't like, want, don't want. Like, when that isn't the driver so much anymore, then there's a lot more options, there's a lot more opportunities, and you can see what's actually going on as well. Because it's like the likes and the don't likes, the wants and the don't wants, like that can be all you're looking at. Like that can be all you're focused on, as opposed to everything else that's going on in reality. But that doesn't make as much sense when you're thinking about yourself, when you're entirely focused on that. But then, you know, you're in your prison, you know, prison of all of that stuff, as if, and it's like, you say things like prison, it's like the door's open. The door's open. The prison door has been open, and it's just a willingness to look beyond that, to let go of this idea that you even know what the right or the wrong thing to do is based on the historical decisions, based on the way you've always lived. And so when that's not the driving force anymore, then yeah, there's a lot more opportunity to shift and grow and change. And it's kind of like that is the allowance for growth and change, because all that stuff is coming from what's existing, like the one that hasn't grown and hasn't changed as much.
We have a question in the comments section, and I want to remind everybody, if you don't want to come on to the call-in show, you don't have to. You can ask questions in the comments section. We definitely do try and pay attention to them as best as we can, but of course we get caught up in conversations, and I'm just saying it is an option to cut us off by just jumping on to the episode. But until then, we are going to continue to answer questions as best we can. With recent Christians in the comments getting so upset, yes, it sparks a great discussion. However, why do they get so upset? Because someone doesn't see the world in the same way. Waste of energy. Agreed. But their belief requires them to do so. And it's because the belief itself requires a lot of energy. And so they're maintaining this thing through attention and thought and focus. As Andrew has said recently in his video, if you weren't thinking, none of that shit would be there, right? And so that's the point, is that they've put so much energy into this fiction that makes them feel better. But the problem with that is that it's a fiction. And so when somebody comes over and they threaten it, that energy is diminished. See, if that fiction is questioned, the energy that it provides to the follower is diminished. And so now they're desperate to try and get that energy back, right? And so to do so, they have to make you diminished, right? They have to bring you down. You have to be evil. Like the sheer number of people right now who, simply because I've dared to have my own interpretation of the Bible, have called me Satan or the son of Satan, is incredible. It's incredible. And I haven't had that many views. Like, we're talking about a pretty good percentage of the small amount of fucking people who have seen this video. Like, thank God it hasn't gone viral. I'd be up on a cross. Like, that's the whole point. And it's so funny because, again, like, it by how fucking fragile you are, but you don't want to look at it because everything you've done your whole life, all your friendships, your schedule, right? The people you talk to, your relationships, your faith, and your parents, all of it comes back to this fucking framework built on a fiction for certainty. And I know Christian parents, they parent from Christianity. So if all of a sudden you were to question the fiction that they parented from, they would just seem like fucking psychopaths to you. And that's what happens to people who leave Christianity. That's what happens to children who grow up and actually leave the house long enough to question the bullshit that is quite obvious to anybody living anywhere close to reality, is that they suddenly look at their parents and like, the fuck is wrong with you? And their parents are like, oh my God, it's the devil. And the child's like, again, what the fuck is wrong with you? And that's the whole point, is that all of a sudden it's like the child has betrayed them, but the child is just not believing in the fiction anymore. Right. And that's kind of the point. And so there's a lot to it. And it is just a response to fear, but there's so much of investment in that. It's that sunk cost fallacy that we had talked about early in season 1, season 2. It's like, well, I've spent my whole life believing in Christianity. I've gone to church, I've gone to confession, I've been baptized, confirmed, all that stuff. Like, look at all my friends and my family. We go and have dinner with the pastor every Sunday, like just stuff like that. And so all of a sudden you're like, what if I question this, that all goes away? If I question this, I'm isolated. If I'm questioning this, then all of a sudden all the people who don't want to question it are going to judge me. And I don't like that feeling. And so I'm not going to question it. And right there, you really have an appreciation for Jesus or Yeshua, because he had that feeling exactly when he came back and questioned all of Judaism in front of priests, in temples, in front of crowds of people who could have fucking destroyed him. And he had the faith to stand apart from the religion that had conditioned him and stand on what he knew, what he had experienced, what he was going through, in that moment, from moment to moment. That's the most important part of the story. Outside of anything he said, that he had the nerve to fucking stand on his own based on his relationship with reality, existence, God, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And anybody who's not willing to do that, you're a Christian in name only, because that's really what Christ did. He went, I'm going to stand on my own with God. That's all I need. Right. And they were like, yeah, okay, I'm going to follow his God. It's like, you missed the point entirely. Because that's exactly what he was standing against. That was exactly what pissed everyone off. It's the reason they killed him. It's the reason Christians don't want to do it. It's because they know exactly what it's going to mean to everyone around them. They're suddenly not going to perceive them as part of the group. Suddenly, they're going to be in even greater danger. And that false certainty, there's no choice. Now, it's kind of like the expression, when you're holding a tiger by the tail, just don't let go.
I like that one.
It'll turn on you. That said, we have one more person here in the queue, and it just happens to be a co-host. Another co-host. Fuck, we got all four of us. I feel like it's a reunion. This is great. Let's just get Jackie on in here and have a fucking conversation, possibly involving blasphemy. That'd be fun.
Oh, yes. I'm thoroughly enjoying the blasphemy. Jackie, what is up? Good
Hey,
to see you.
Jackie.
What's up, you guys? I missed you all so much. Excited to chat. It's a four co-host special. Let's go. But yeah, really enjoying the conversation. I missed the last like 20 seconds or whatever because there's like a delay, and so when it connects to Zoom, I'm like, what are we talking about now? Something about Jesus. But yeah, Jesus just having the courage to stand on his own and have faith that like whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And when you see yourself as not just the individual, like you're both and neither, like you're the individual, the collective, and neither at all. And I think Jesus saw that. And so even though they fully were capable of stringing him up on a cross, and they eventually did, he was still going to do what he thought, was personally meaningful to him. And that's the best that all of us can ever do, is just have the courage to be ourselves, stand on our own, and not look up to anybody else as, an idol, somebody to look up to model our lives after. Because you do that assuming that that other person has the answer, and they fucking don't. And eventually you'll realize that, and then you'll be left on your own anyway. So might as well just realize it sooner rather than later. And I'm not going to ever say that standing on your own and being fully responsible for yourself is like fun or really enjoyable. It is in like a very deep, meaningful way, right? It's like, yeah, my life is my own and I'm owning it. But that means owning all your shit and all of the possible fears and thoughts that keep you up at night. It's on you to deal with. Like, you can't go crying to your mom in the middle of the night like I used to, like every night as a child, right? It's like, no, you just gotta lie there with it. And as you do that, more and more, the more you face it, you're like, okay, I was so afraid of this for so long, but I'm facing it and I'm still here. So maybe I am capable of handling it. And I think that's like, now I'm just really starting to feel like an adult, because that feels like adulthood to me, is being able to sit in that and question other people, question yourself and the things that you've relied on for security and safety, and just sit in that uncertainty and realize that certainty was never the point, right? It's just the visceral experience, and you get more of that the less that you're leaning on other people. So it's been interesting. It's been intense for sure. The last couple weeks, just like processing really the realization that like it's all on me. and it hit in a deeper way recently. So yeah.
That is awesome. And I just want to again say that it seems really heavy at first, and it's just because we still have all these thoughts about it, right? Later on, it becomes quite light because it's just doing what you're doing. It's just doing what you're doing and having the faith in yourself to not second guess it just because of how somebody might perceive it and what that might do for your future. Like that's really what the whole thought process is, right? And so this is what we were saying about Jesus, but it's important in any person on any level. I mean, this is exactly why Martin Luther King stood up and was talking. He knew he was, going to get shot. JFK, like all these people understood, like there was a danger to what they were doing, but it meant something to them specifically, something that they had worked for, right? And so somebody had asked, like, why do you keep doing these conversations? A lot of people ask me why I keep doing these conversations with these Christians and other people who get very mad at me and whatnot. And it's because, I don't care what they think of me. Like, that's a big part of it. Like, I've worked my whole life to fucking, focus on my own life, to focus on my own experience of reality. When I talk about shit, people are like, oh, you sound so fucking arrogant. No, I've just really thought about my shit. Like I've really gone through my shit. And I'm still going through it wholeheartedly, right? But it's mine. What I'm saying is mine, and if it's not, I'm super skeptical of it, and that's kind of the whole point. But people often get angry at me, as everybody knows. I've been getting a lot of accusations of being the child of Satan and so on and so forth. But this just came through, and I wanted to read it. Okay? This came from somebody on Instagram. It appears to me that a lot of Christians don't have the ears to listen for themselves. I love and appreciate how you respond to a lot of the comments you receive on your posts. I've been a background swimmer of DU since season 1, and I've been having similar conversations with friends and family. So you and Andrew have been a comforting light, in my opinion. Why? It's not because we're giving them answers. It's not because we're giving them something to hold on to, but it's because we have the nerve to not hold on, to speak for ourselves, to actually think rationally about things and question, those comforts and those securities that go with not questioning, being willing to actually shake that family tree or that friendship tree, whatever it might be, being willing to shake it by questioning that foundational fucking root it's built on. Because then what happens is you might lose friends, you might lose family, but if that's the case, they never really were your friends or family, right? But you'll also make room for people who don't share that foundation. You'll also make room for a different kind of life. And so all of a sudden, all of that joy and happiness and experience and enthusiasm and attention and everything that you were praying for while you were immersed in fiction, you get to experience by virtue of just letting that fiction go.
And you also give them, so even when you are being yourself and you shake that family tree and you shake that friendship tree and they do go, right, you also make space for them to give themselves the opportunity to let go, right? Because people will surprise you. And that's something that I've learned over the years, is that we really think that we do know our friends and family because we have had them around for decades and 20 and 30 years sometimes. And you do think that you know how your friends and family are going to react, but you really don't. And even if they do get upset, even if they do ignore you for a certain amount of time, I have been so delightfully surprised that people that I imagined would hold a grudge against me forever because they got mad about the way that I showed up or the way that I questioned the foundation, and they came around and they're like, thank you for not giving a fuck. Thank you for being unbothered. And I'm so glad, because I got to see what I was holding on to, and that wasn't fair to me or to you. And so it's not just that you resonate with people or you resonate with new people, is that you'd be surprised how often the people that you think don't resonate with you could and find their way to resonating with you. So I just wanted to mention that. And Jackie, when you're talking about, like, we love to look up to somebody, the person I love to look up to was the best Amanda. That was my favorite person to look up to. That was the person who I thought knew everything, who knew exactly what I needed to do. I was my favorite idol to look up to. So not just looking up to other people, but thinking that I was the person to look up to, and not needing to do that anymore, that even I don't automatically assume that I know what's best, that I know everything, or that I know what I should be doing next or what I should be doing now other than what I'm already doing. So I just wanted to slip that in there because it's not just external people that you look up to, you also look up to yourself.
And that very much becomes a maintenance sort of thing too. If you're always holding yourself to that bar and like want to be someone that's looked to, it's like that's self-created pressure right there. Because then it's like, who's got to live up to that bar? Well, I do also. That's the other part of it. It's like, shit, wait a second. Is that necessary? Do I need that? Does it feel that good to be looked to? Or can I just throw that on the floor and be like, here I am. This is what you got. This is where you're at. Because, yeah, it's silly to think that there's even a control over that, like being something that's trying to be something versus being yourself, whatever comes naturally, whatever happens. Like, there's not a degree of control in one or the other of those. So it's like, well, which one is going to impact my experience more? Oh, relaxing and doing my best to enjoy what's going on and not thinking so goddamn much about what's happening. Yeah, sign me up for that one. I'll take that. Yeah, those are two options. Yeah, that one. I'm good. I'm good with that.
Make that two of those, please. I want as well. Yeah,
Marvel.
that's a great distinction to point out though, like, because that's another huge factor. I feel like it's like a double whammy, you know? You like looked, or at least me, I look to other people, or have in the past looked to other people to see, to model like how I should, what is my theoretical best self? Like it's a little bit of here, a little here, a little here, different things that I like observe and I like idealize, and then I hold myself to that standard. It's like I create my own like antagonist, which is like my higher self, like the theoretically most perfect version of Jackie, according to Jackie, which is another thing, right? Like there's like a billion different versions of like who I could be, and any one of those could be rationalized to be the best version, right? So like any one thing that I'm clinging on to is just causing drag and suffering and pain. And yeah, I relate to that a lot though, because I have a very specific idea of how my life should look right now. And I'm constantly beating myself up for the ways that it's not matching up to that. And like that's just so fucking unnecessary because I'm still sitting in my life as it is. And all of that beating myself up is just thought happening in the background. It's not here on the ground, like where my actual life is. It's not doing anything. It's not moving me forward in any way that's meaningful. It's just because I like to kick my own ass. And it was funny when I was talking to Ray earlier. Like I was telling him that I'm like super anxious about teaching yoga right now. And I'm like, I'm finding it difficult to get myself to get started. And I'm like, I have so much judgment about it. And he's like, well, once you get through, I wonder what the next thing will be that you want to be yourself, right? Because it's always that next thing. And it's arbitrary what it actually is. It can be interchangeable. So none of the things themselves are actually worth focusing on. It's just thinking that you should be any different than how you are right now. Like that's the only thing that I have to let go of. It's not the specific ideas. It's not the specific thoughts or habits. It's just the tendency to judge myself rather than just fucking changing. Because I'll judge myself if I keep doing the same things. Yeah, so it's interesting to like look at it for what it is and being like, oh wow. This whole time I was thinking I really understood it. Like the difference between talking about the concepts and actually applying it, it's kind of a big gap. And Andrew, you've talked about this a lot, like participating in the conversation can kind of fool you into thinking that you're applying it and getting it, but it's a whole other thing. And recently I just want to shut the fuck up and like just do the thing. But it's fun to talk about it as well, you know, as we're processing, it's valuable, but but the action is the biggest part. The actually looking at your own life and being like, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? How is it serving me to try and live up to my own bar or somebody else's bar? You realize that it doesn't, and then it's like, okay, well, now I'm left with my whole life ahead of me. And yeah, let me just, I don't know, do a craft or like read a book or go for a walk. Today I bedazzled this lighter and it has my name on it. It has my initials on it. Because like why the fuck not, right? Like I don't know. And I can just enjoy things like that and things for the sake of doing them rather than trying to be a creative person or like trying to be a productive person. Like so stupid. Like you can't try and be any sort of person or type of way. Like there literally is just the actions themselves. And that makes everything a lot more simple. But I don't know. It's fun getting lost in the shit too, because then you come up afterwards and you have something to laugh about.
But that's the thing, like it's an oscillating ride, but it's also oscillating on numerous different scales. Like we're going up and down, but over the course of our life, we're going up and down in an up way and then a down way over years. Like there's a huge oscillation to everything that we're experiencing. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in, like when you get to this point where you're like, okay, it's not about the words, it's about application. Yeah, now, at one point, it was about the fucking words. Why was it about the words? Because you were using totally different words. You were used to thinking in a totally different way. And so changing the words was taking action, was doing something about the mentality that you were in. It was hard to do those things. And so you used a carrot. Maybe you used a stick, like, oh, it's going to make me a guru. Oh, it's going to make me spiritual. Oh, it's going to make, maybe you did, but you didn't realize you were doing that as a way of kind of putting the brakes on the change that you're going through. You're going through these changes. And so all of a sudden you go and you're like, yeah, holy fuck, this feels great. This conversation's awesome. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh fuck, it's about the application more than the words. And so then you start going through the emotional shit and then you're like, okay, fuck, I want to talk about this. And you go back into the words and you get lost in the concepts again. And you kind of get floating in there. And then you're like, ah, fuck, and it all fell apart again. And so you go through this loop. But then as you start getting more and more to the point where you're like, it's not about the words. It's so tempting to give back into that temptation to judge yourself for using them. And it's still the same shit. It's still going back to that comfort zone. It's still looking back and going, yeah, that had no value, but it got you here. Right? It got you here. And so there was value in it. But we just want to make it about the story. We just want to make it about ourselves. We just want to go back and go, yeah, no, I was wasting my time. I'm just circling around. I'm not doing anything of value. It's like you got here. Like it took you a while to get here. There was a point in your life where you could have never imagined even having this conversation. Imagine what's next. And then, well, I don't mean that literally. Don't imagine what's next. Don't avoid that. Avoid imagining what's next. But the point is that put a big fucking question mark on that what's next, and allow it to be whatever it becomes, but we really have this, we forget how much we've changed, I guess is my point. Like the more you stop doing things for what it means about you, the more your decisions change, and the problem is that we weren't doing that. We were telling ourselves a story because we got raised to tell ourselves a story. Everybody around us is telling themselves a story, and we did the same thing. And so we felt imprisoned by that story. We had needs and lack and all this shit related to that story. We needed control. We had things to fear. There was all of this stuff, and we got caught up in responding to that story. And so now it's just about recognizing that. Like that's really it. And then letting go. See, that's the thing, is that once you've recognized you were caught up in the story, why you were caught up in the story, what you invested in, there's nothing else for you to do now. You see, just do. But you want to think like, well, what if I don't do the right thing? All that shit you fucked up was the result of the shit that you were invested in. Like you're afraid of repeating past mistakes that were made on a mentality that you left behind. You cannot see the fruits of the work you've done if you don't allow yourself to. You have to have faith in yourself and witness the change you've gone through. You'd be surprised, but as long as you tell yourself a story, you're just going to see the change you're focused on, which is usually almost none at all.
Yeah, and just keep cycling around that. Just keep cycling around like how much the measurement again. You can get caught on that. It's like where am I at? How am I doing now? And then like it's I was yeah, just wondering about the I guess yeah, just how much thoughts can kind of like feel just super real and they almost like play out in reality. But yeah, I've certainly lived in a world of thought for a bit. And you can kind of just cycle around that, trying to solve that instead of looking. It's like it becomes this sort of thing where it's like you're there, and it's just like you don't want to look at what's there and what it all means and what you know letting go means, and like despite no guarantee. So it's like still as Jackie was saying, there's always this opportunity, or as you were talking about, this opportunity to get caught in something. Like it's always going to be there. Some desire to measure something. Think about yourself in some way. There's an opportunity, but yeah, it's just like the oh yeah, I'm doing that again, and then come back to what's going on. But yeah, the the application side of it is that's all it is, really. It's like the words, the conversation is like it's like a glaze on a donut, you know? It's like ah yeah, it's like it's there. It sounds good, it's sweet, but like it's not the donut. Like you take the glaze, you shave the glaze off, it's like the donut's still there. But the glaze is no longer the donut. So you notice that, you sniff it, you what's that glaze taste like? It's like there's some it's on something. It's not just glaze. It's a donut. There's something there, but sometimes the donut doesn't taste like a donut, or you don't
Versus
know if
just
it's
there,
gonna
just
taste.
licking the icing off and never eating the donut.
Yeah. Scraping it off like you do on an Oreo. Like, oh gosh, going around mowing it down. But yeah, that's really, I mean, that's yeah, I never thought of it like that, but that was there then. So the application really is like it's what it is. It's doing it. And then that informs all the words. The words come from that when they're coming from that. Otherwise, you're just gonna look around for someone who you think is eating the donut to do that and just kind of watch him eat it like in the corner. It's like, God, donut looks kind of good, but like, I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna taste. It's like, well, you can sit there watching and then kind of saying stuff about it, commenting on it, or you can go get your own donut and take a bite. Take a bite out of it, which is doing it, which is being it, just being what is, just yourself and just living for yourself on your own. That's the thing, is like as soon as you say something like being everything, being like being reality, like even that, it's like, okay, that's there, but it's being alone also, entirely alone also. So as much as it's like everything sounds good because it's like, arms around everyone, it's like, yeah, but you can't look to anyone else. It's kind of like doing it in silo and then noticing. It's like, oh shit, hey, what's up? As opposed to, yeah, just focusing on the parts that sound good or feel good. It's like, no, you're alone. Alone means alone in every decision that you make, everything that you do. It's like you don't have to look to anyone, because why would you? What's that going to get you? What's going to get you besides an ability to maybe contort what you're doing to fit in to something, something that you're not even sure of that. Because then you start being yourself a little bit more and you notice that, oh, these responses are different. Like it's not getting this atrocious response that you always kind of assumed you would, like if you just relax a little bit. And it's like, oh wait, you're actually way more involved in your life in general with everyone you interact with. It's not like this sort of idea of maintaining like this tense perspective on like, oh, you gotta check in, stay in control, all that stuff. Like that doesn't really do you any good, like, period, in any sort of way or any relationship even. Like people feel that stuff when someone's closed off, when someone's tense, when someone's, focused on themselves entirely. And it can be it that positive or that negative side. It's the same fucking distraction. It's the same desire to know something or just to focus, you know, on yourself. But yeah, application where it's at.
It's funny because like I said, I was just doing my own thing for a number of years, perfectly happy with where I was. And then my daughter's like, get on TikTok. And I'm like, God, I don't want to get on TikTok, that whole thing. And then so I did. And my first few videos, like they went, almost straight to the deep end before I realized, like, right, this is a social media app. Nobody wants to have this conversation. And so one of my first early videos, I've got two of them actually, and they're both done with the alien face on it. And it's very much about the truth that you were just talking about. And then afterwards, and I posted it, I'm like, yeah, nobody's gonna listen to that at all. But I'm gonna download it. We're gonna try and fucking play it.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. I don't know if I've seen Ray's first TikTok videos. But yeah, just he was like, hey, let me burst some bubbles. Perhaps. Just stirring up chaos because why the fuck not? Oh, but Andrew, yeah, when you were talking, it was just hitting me like we talk about like it's about the application, but you kind of can't really help but apply it once you recognize things, like it changes you. And everything that you do changes accordingly. And that might not happen on the timeline that you expect it to, or in the way that you expect it to. Because that's something I've realized is that like, I don't know, like I said, I felt like for a long time I was just talking and not doing anything, but I totally was that whole time. And so I'm realizing a lot of that is just coming from me not willing to give myself credit because I can't accept myself unless my life looks the way I want it to. So I think that's important to remember. Like you're already fucking doing it. Like switching from concepts to applying it isn't like really a real thing. It's that really is just recognizing that it only ever comes down to you. And even if other people say words that resonate with you, doesn't mean that like they know better or that they're really eating and enjoying the donut. They could very much be licking the icing. And you never actually know that. And you could still resonate really deeply with what somebody says who's really lost because it's not what they're saying, it's how you're interpreting it. So like I'm already fucking doing it. And so is everybody who's existing, really. But like having this conversation specifically, like you don't need to worry about how it's going to change your life. Like you've been doing it this whole time. And I look back at how many changes I've made. And yeah, sure, maybe I put unnecessary pressure on myself to make some of them and like forced myself to do things that were uncomfortable for me. But regardless, it happened, so I took care of it the way that I was supposed to, I guess. It's like everything happens for a reason, and the reason is because it happened. So you're just left with where you are right now, and there's no like arriving at a place where your shit isn't still constantly there, like, or on the table. Like it's always going to be an option to judge yourself or think that you're not doing something right or that you need to be applying things deeper, but like there's no end to that. So you can just be satisfied with how you are literally right now. And I just don't like part of me just really doesn't fucking want to accept that. Like I can just be okay right now. The fuck do you mean? Like I could just be okay with the present moment, but there's so much bullshit to worry about. Turns out none of that is worth worrying about. Like really anything at all. And it's so pointless. So like I can go for a ride sometimes, but it's just nice to know that I'm always just going to end up in the same place. And like even if I am doing all the things that I think would make me better or make me feel better in some way, there's still going to be the lack there. So it's just like trying not to get rid of it anymore. Like trying not to want to get rid of it. That's a double negative there, but just being okay with yourself as you are. Like it's so much easier said than done.
It's kind of funny, right? Because it's like you're whole and complete, including a sense of lack. And that goes in with being whole and complete. You get the full fucking spectrum. And that's exactly what it is. And you get everything in the kitchen sink. And the kitchen sink in this case is that tendency to want to judge the fuck out of yourself. But that is part of being whole and complete. We don't like that, and that's why we don't feel whole and complete. Frankly, we resist a significant part of ourselves. We resist, everything that we are, everything that we're doing. I like what you said there. It's meant to be because it's what's happening. And that's how and that's exactly it. So all there is what you're doing. That's it. There's just now and what you do with it. Rinse and repeat. And that's the whole fucking process, right? But pay attention to that because that's life in motion. That's where things are actually happening. That's where the universe's intelligence is being expressed. And I say the universe's, but it's really just ours. It's just not ours in the ownership kind of sense, which is what fucks up Christians. For sure. Somebody's just like, well, you have your own truth. I'm like, it's not something you can own. I'm just saying. It's not a possession. That's quaint and very cute. That said, I found the video. So I'm going to share that shit with everyone because it's funny, in my humble opinion. God, man, the TikTok adventure. Jesus, here we go. Yes, Alien Ray. Who else is up for it? Okay, so there's been a lot of talk about frontrunners and soul warriors and light workers and so on and so forth. And I just want to say very clearly that the only true spirituality is the understanding that your consciousness and my consciousness are the same consciousness, that you are me and I am you, and that you are absolutely alone, that you are God, that there is no creator to meet because you are the creator itself. And with that goes a tremendous responsibility if you run from it. But if you accept it, then you're free. And you can love everyone around you unconditionally because they're you. And they can never make you feel complete because you are the center of your universe. But you can certainly make their life, or rather your life through them, easier by just showing a little kindness. Take responsibility for it. Don't run from it. Be the universe. Be yourself. Because you already are, whether you like it or not. There's something about that at the end, it always gets me. But so yeah, that was just me fucking around. And then afterwards I'm like, ugh, I don't like that word consciousness, and I'm not too fond of kindness. And and so all of a sudden I'm just like, well, fuck, that's not the best, and just leave it there. Because that's kind of the point. Like, somebody's going to resonate with it because those words make sense to them. They're just like, yeah, that's the shit that I use. Okay, cool. And that's the value of it. Right. But then there's a step after that. Then there's something that can happen beyond that. And it doesn't matter. Like, we're all just making steps. It's like Ram Dass was saying, we're all walking each other home. And that's kind of nice. Like, you look at it, you're like, yeah, but some of us are fucking dragging ass. Like, a few of us are fucking doing it, kicking and screaming, like we're holding their hands, like, come on, Timmy. He's like, no, I don't fucking care. And then, and that's kind of like the point. It's like we're all walking each other home, but not all of us are going willingly. Some of us are being dragged. as it were. So it's a much more nuanced image of going home. That said, we have somebody in the queue. We have a caller. Somebody has taken the plunge. Very excited about this. Jackie, can you stick around for a little bit? I know you got to go because you got a thing.
Yeah, I can stay for like 15 more.
Perfect. Well, in
So I'll
that
stay for
case,
this guy.
let's
go.
let Kelly, who's been in the comment section, onto the show. Very excited about this, Kelly. I'm glad that you can make it. Thank you.
Kelly, hello. Let's see ya. You are currently muted if you're talking. Hey,
Hello again, Kelly.
what's up?
Wait, I can't hear. I'm sorry.
I was about to say that's okay,
Ew.
but she can't hear me.
We make a brief.
Can you hear?
What's happening?
Hello
Oh,
again,
it's on
Kelly.
mute. Okay. Wait, I can't hear. I'm sorry. Oh my God. I'm completely
I was
70
about to
years
say
old.
that's okay, but she can't hear me.
I need to quit out of the live. Okay, hi. I'm sorry. I haven't been, I was moving from the lobby to here, so I wasn't listening exactly where we were.
No problem at all. I'm glad that you could join us and that we resolved all that. I appreciate how quickly you did that, by the way. Thanks for joining us, Kelly. It's nice to see you.
You guys too.
Great to see you. Yeah, we just watched one of Ray's old TikTok videos.
Oh, when I
Well,
was pulling up things, I saw Ray in alien form. And I was like, what am I missing out on?
oh yeah, just digging right in. Just digging right into the reality of what we are. Being
Yeah,
not
I
distant.
appreciate the podcast so much because I find I can't have these kinds of conversations with a lot of people that are kind of open-minded and want to question kind of what is given to us on a social construct level about life and about the universe or a deity or God or anything. So this is great for that, and I'm so appreciative, and my health has gotten a lot better, though sometimes I miss things because I have appointments, but I want to jump in. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself now.
And it is great to have you. I'm very glad you did because, yeah, I think most people who come to these calls are in a pretty similar boat with that, with the being able to have just conversations because, there's a lot of things that people wanna hold on to, certain ideas that feel very, very threatening, when you start talking about them or questioning them. And that's why these things, like God or religion, just something you don't question. You just don't do it because it's like as soon as you do, there's a lot of sensitivity to it. It's like, whoa, we don't do that. We don't do that because it's like, well, why? Why is there so much sensitivity to that? Start wondering about that. But yeah, that sort of aversion, it's common. I've dealt with it for yeah, number of years where it's just like yeah, people like as soon as you start bringing something up like this, like some will go for a bit, chat with you about it, but yeah, that's why I appreciate these groups as well.
I would say I'm agnostic. Um, when my father passed when I was very young, my relationship to a God became very negative. Uh, and I just felt um, angry, I think, and went to a boarding school that was Catholic. And one time I took communion just for the hell of it, and I didn't realize like people wait and there's like a day for them to get their first communion. Like I didn't recognize that that was a big thing, but like the principal just smiled and I was like, okay. Um, my mom has put me in different churches to go to sometimes to kind of, I think she grew up in the South, and so it's very much a part of who she is. Um, and I, what you guys have said resonates so much that it's comforting for people to believe that there's an ever knowing power and that you will go this way. There's no more unknown because you will go this way if you do these things. And if you don't, you'll end up in hell, which I wrote in the comments on YouTube. It's kind of like the fear mongering the press do, because it's just like, well, this could happen. So it keeps you compliant and doing the same thing that's always been done. They do not like diversion, like the protests that have been happening on college campuses. Um, it's not the status quo. That's not what we believe in, and can't take a time to step back and not honor a geopolitical, um, I guess, partnership that's lasted so long. That not believing that now means you hate a certain set of people. So when we talk about religion and our feelings, I feel like they get really nasty as well. And it's like, that's not very Christian like, my friend. I don't think if God could hear you right now, you would be very happy that you're calling someone certain names, you know?
Oh my goodness,
So,
absolutely, Kelly. I love when you were talking about like how upset they get, right? When you do want to talk to them, you do want to question them, and you're like, why do they get so angry? And it's just because they've built an identity out of that belief. So if you question the belief, you're questioning their identity, and they can't stand
mm,
that, you know? And so I was like, I resonate. I was like, oh, pff, absolutely. And yet still I laugh a little bit because I'm like,
mm,
you're not that idea. You're so much more than just that little itty bitty idea.
yeah.
Fragile.
It's yeah, kind of mind blowing. It's kind of like having a favorite if you're a stan of a celebrity or something and like someone says something you don't like. It's like people can have other opinions. Like you don't need to convert more people and you're doing a really bad job of it right now. Let me tell you.
Oh, right. It's like the more that are converted, the more right I am. So the more I
Mhm.
get, the more correct. That's
Mhm.
what they think, at least,
Yeah.
pretty much. Like validation. It's like that
Hmm.
more validation. And so the dropping numbers in Christianity, especially, are probably getting a lot of people like, uh-oh, this is feeling less and less like a reasonable thing to do. Doesn't really make so much sense. Everyone's dropping off. Shit, how many are dropping off right now? Should I get on that? It's like a stock
Yeah,
plummeting.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
sorry. It's like hilarious to watch though. Like if somebody's trying to like proselytize at you and you're like not having it and they get angry and I'm like, well, it doesn't look like that belief is really helping you very much, you know? Like you don't seem to be
Yeah.
very at peace with yourself or with your life. You seem to be really afraid and insecure actually. So like maybe I'm good on whatever you're having. Like
Yeah.
um
I
and it,
I would love to see a little video clip of like their face like typing like that. I think about that all the time. I'm like, how mad are they and how hard are they pressing their keyboard right now?
Oh, we don't need a video. Our imagination is just accurate. You exactly what you did, Kelly. Like that's exactly what they're doing. And
Bruce
I love you
Almighty.
talked about like the numbers. They're worried about the Christian numbers going down. They went up once upon a time ago because they killed the non-believers. So their numbers went up because the non-believers numbers went down by force. So it's like, oh, in my opinion, I was like, oh, how some of them might miss the Crusades, how some of them might miss being able to wipe out people who don't believe in them. I was like, oh, don't I'm glad that we can't do that. But we see that happening not just in religion, like the increase in shootings, right? Because back in the day, like when my mom was growing up in like the 80s and the 70s in New York, you had a problem, somebody would go to your apartment building, they'd ring your bell, you'd be on the sixth floor, they'd be like, bring that ass down here. And so there was so much like, but people are so afraid of just physical fights or
Yeah.
conversational disagreements that it's like, if you disagree with me, I have to kill you. And it's like, how did things escalate so quickly that just disagreeing with you gives you the idea that you could wipe someone out just because they disagree? Like,
Yeah.
insane.
There's a documentary on Netflix that talks about one of the first times that NRA got behind someone shooting sorry, for Black people on the train in like the Bronx. Who I can't find it, but it's just a it's a documentary, different episodes of different cases and how the media sways things. And
Yes.
so it was the first time because he was like, I applied to get a gun license 3 times. And they said, if we gave you a gun, then everyone would have a gun, and that would be crazy. That's what the cop literally told him. And so, like, now shit is crazy because everyone can go get one. And yeah, I don't, that's something that used to really scare me and keep me indoors, the idea of like dying in a mass shooting or something. But I'm like, hope it's quick. Can't,
Yeah, a lot of people
spend
aren't
too
that
much time
trained.
on that.
Right? We've got people that are running through like paintball fields,
Mhm.
little arenas with like their little camo, thinking that like they're in this like war, thinking that they're playing Call of Duty real life. And it's like a lot
Yeah.
of times statistics say that people who own guns are more than likely to die from their own gun than someone else's. So like
Hmm.
so that was a big deterrent for me when I thought about getting a
Yeah.
license. I was like, you know what? I feel like the last thing I want is for someone to shoot me with my own gun, and the second to last, I
Right.
don't want to shoot myself with my own gun. It's like, you know what? If today's our last day, we're gonna make the most of it, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be so afraid
Exactly.
that like my gun is my emergency plan, right? Because it doesn't guarantee
Yeah.
I'm going to survive that
Anything.
hypothetical.
Yeah. My cousin recently was like the end of days are coming, like get a gun. And I was like, Narena, you told me like 2 years ago you would never get a gun because you would shoot yourself. And I'm like, I know myself. Like if I have a real bad day, I can't have options like that around. And it used to be way worse, but I was joking like, if it becomes us versus zombies or whatever, I'll lock my door and try maybe, but I don't, like you said, for if someone's coming after me, I guess I think like I'm not going to have more abilities than them uh to subdue them, I guess. But thanks, guys.
Thank you. It's always nice to have you here, and the wonderful world of religion and Christianity is always a fun topic. Absolutely. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
popping on the show though, and it's I think this is the first or second time you've been on a call-in show, because I know you've
I
joined us
think
in a
it's
group.
a first.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and I've done 2 groups, signed up for another group, or I've done 2 groups this year, signed up for another one, but just joined tier 2 today.
That is
So
awesome.
I'll be here later tonight.
Sweet. Well, we'll see you in about a half hour. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, that's exactly
Okay.
how easy it is. Just jump on the fucking show. Have a
Yeah,
great.
the link is right there.
Exactly. Exactly. No, very much appreciated for sure. And we'll see you very shortly.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
That was awesome. We actually have a question in the chat section. So I want to throw this in there quickly. I don't know if you have time, Jackie, for a question.
I got to skedaddle, but
Yeah.
peace out, you guys. Love you all. Happy I got to chat, and keep doing your thing.
Yeah, well, likewise. And, we'll meet you in the middle, and we'll see you on Friday for DU Rip.
That's right.
Yeah, do you real? Also, we're gonna be doing some yoga classes pretty soon on Patreon. So
Ow, ow.
Haley will now be able to come to my yoga class on the 18th for the
May
Patreon.
18th at noon Eastern time. That's right. The post is going to be on Patreon later tonight. Keep an eye out for it, everyone. Definitely jump in on that yoga class.
We're doing the damn thing. All right, bye guys.
See you,
Bye,
Jackie.
Jackie. Thanks so much. This has been fun. I'm really enjoying this conversation. All right, now to the question. All right. Let's say our minds can't process the awareness of everything happening around us. How do we pull ourselves back into a peaceful state of being? Okay, so that's a great question. First thing I would recommend is abandoning the idea of peaceful, because that's immediately a concept. You're going to try and get to it. It's going to cause conflict and tension and pressure based on what you're experiencing right now, not being your idea of peaceful, and it's going to fuck you up. So it's not about feeling peaceful. It's about feeling what you're feeling without the reaction, without the judgment, without the opinion, without the assumption. And so if you're getting caught up in it, and really the only problem as you're processing, as you start to get caught up in all the stuff you're processing, is your opinion. Understand, that's the only place the weight comes from. You're like, guys, this is getting overwhelming. That's just your shit that's getting overwhelming because you're still committed to it. Okay, so what I like to do, and I've recommended this to a number of people, focus on something that doesn't require your opinion, and then don't have an opinion of it. And like, focus on the feeling of the air on your skin. Focus on the heat in the palms of your hands. Focus on the cold on the palms of your hand, whatever it is. Focus on the experience. Just focus on the experience. Feel the experience until there's no you cerebrally processing the experience. You're just in the experience. This is why breathing can be so useful. Out, in, out, in. Don't breathe that quickly. You'll hyperventilate. The point is that you're focusing on what's happening, not your thoughts about it, not what it means about you, but on what's happening. And when you can get so into your breath that you're not thinking about you anymore, that there is just the process of breathing, that's when you'll feel that peace that you're looking for.
Yeah, well said. I was going through that as you were talking about it, because yeah, those all that stuff and that idea of peace and being a spot that you can even maintain, because it's like you have this thought, it's like, oh, I really want to get to peace. I really want to feel better. It's like, and then what? You think that's going to be maintained? Because if it's not maintained, then it's like, why are we going for that specific thing to begin with? Because if that's the case, then yeah, man, I don't know if I ever quite realized how much it was opinion in response to whatever's going on. And then that just expands. I can just expand so quick, just into this whole sort of thing, as opposed to just like, oh yeah, it's an opinion. And like it feels like such a, yeah, such like a fluttering thing, but there's yeah, as I'm fucking saying it sitting here in my chair, it's like, yeah, the glaze component, talking, just sitting here with my little microphone here. But it is, realizing too that that's a component, like it isn't even, oh God, even like anything that you're doing, it's just paying attention to it. It's like, yes, going through, you know, stuff and, application and all of that. But like Jackie was saying before, like it it's continuous. It's continuous. It's not like this, cerebral for a bit, application for a bit, cerebral for a bit, application for a bit. This back and forth. It's like both at the same time. And oftentimes the cerebral informs that and the action informs the cerebral. Like they're interconnected all the time. And it's like there's opportunity, because it's just opportunity to pay attention, not have an opinion of whatever's going on. And that goes for the thoughts too, though. And it's like that was always where I focused, was like on the thoughts about whatever it was. And like in the moment, yeah, that's the thing. But then there's the application that's happening, informing all of that based on whatever thoughts are fluttering by. Because I always thought of I thought of thoughts as something that was like separate. Like it wasn't something that, like, Eckhart does a fucking great job of just doing that. Like, oh, thought is this thing that isn't informative at all. It's just this devil, like thinking itself, but it's very much informative. And then it's again the application of whatever that information is. And it's like our response is that opinion. Is that opinion the pain body? Exactly. He loved that one. Loves still, I'm sure.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I definitely read some Eckhart Tolle books. So as soon as you started bringing it up, I was like, oh, the pain body, thinking it's something separate. And when I jumped on this call-in show at the beginning, I had talked about like I'm feeling like I have my hands in multiple pots and none of the pots are burning. And I'm in flow. That was another way of me saying that I've been in flow state, or it felt like I've been in flow state all day. And it's been that way because I haven't gotten caught up in my thoughts. And the analogy that came to mind was like, I wasn't allowing myself to fall into this pit of think sand, which is just my rephrasing of quicksand. But instead of quicksand being made of sand, it's made of thoughts. And the more you move, the more stuck, the more you sink into it. But it's just, you don't have to fall in, because the thoughts don't have to be eliminated. They don't have to be considered a problem. I'm still in flow state. And yet I still had so many thoughts coming up today about my job, about moving, about selling my stuff, about, side story. I almost got scammed the other day, Andrew. So like, that's a whole nother thing. So it's like all these different things that have been happening. And yet, despite having those thoughts there, it just didn't feel like I needed to focus on them. And I wasn't really thinking about me. I was just in the middle of doing something. And then we went from doing something to doing something else. And when I do find myself really caught up in thinking, the way that you had phrased it earlier was like, oh, I'm doing that again. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But when I'm really thinking, I'm not really doing. So it's like when I notice that I'm not doing something, I'm like, oh shit, we have been thinking hard. Like super hard for the last few days, for the last few, not even days, this last moment, we have been thinking so hard that I thought myself into a temporary like paralysis, where I didn't even notice it. And then I'm like, shit, I'm in the think sand, the quicksand. Shit. It was like, okay, all right. You know what? These thoughts are here. They're always here. So what are we trying to get out of it? So then the pit of quote unquote quicksand, think sand, no longer feels like a pit. It just feels like almost like a running stream in the background, like a stream of thoughts is flowing in the background, and it's doing its own thing. And yet in conjunction, like you had said, like the intellectual feeds the doing and the doing feeds the intellectual. It's all there. And when I'm not trying to think about it, I can pay attention to it. And as I'm paying attention, more doing just flows naturally. And so then it starts to feel like this quote unquote flow state. But I'm not trying to get to a flow state. I'm not trying to get to a peaceful state. It's just happening, and I'm not thinking too hard about it.
And then sometimes you like are doing it, and it's like it hits you how little you've been thinking for a bit. It's like, whoa, 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 careful. But there's almost like an initial, like that initial sort of sensitivity to it. And then, yeah, just being informed by it, and just like not putting yourself first with the choices, the things that you do, the way that you spend your time and focus, because informs, where the attention goes. It's like if it's on something that you think you want, because you can't even want something without thinking. It's like you can't want it. You think you want it. And it's like that there, but it's like that it can't be there without thinking about it. And so when that's paid attention to, and it's like that's taken as something that's valid, it's like that's gonna do something as opposed to not. But yeah, yeah, I guess that is flow state that people talk about is just, yeah, it's just not thinking about yourself. But that goes, in what you're doing and what you're doing all the time. Like those inform each other. And for anyone listening, I'm making like hand gestures, and I realized I just said the same exact thing, but it's like the moment to moment what you're doing and the, overarching life that you're living and everything about it. It's not just the moment to moment trying to skirt thoughts, and that being like you're fucking skiing down a hill, dodging the gates or trees or something. It's like there's probably a better pair of skis out there, or spots where there's maybe a few less trees. I don't know.
Absolutely. I love Think Sand. I think that's great because, of course, with the whole idea of quicksand that we all grew up with from books and whatnot, what do you not do? Don't struggle. And in this case, as soon as you do, it becomes fucking Think Sand because you're looking for control. Love that shit. That's great. That said, we got like 3 minutes left here. So I just want to mention to everybody, thank you, first of all, for being here for the show. You may not have called in, but you don't need to because obviously we're going to have the conversation anyway. But if you would like to join us after this and actually be on a call with us where it's not an episode, so, nothing on the line, nobody's going to be listening to you after the fact except maybe on Patreon. Join us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Dualistic Unity. We're having a tier 2 call tonight. We have 5 of those per week. And we have a 7-day free trial. So if you'd like to join us, please do. And you can do so for free, which is kind of nice.
Oh my goodness. I just read in the comments. I love how Amanda doesn't care about there's an edge to the thoughts and just rolls with it. And that's phenomenal. And I just want to say, I have felt insane for a while, and I used to be scared that like, oh no, one day they're gonna like put me in a straitjacket and that's it. Now, when I think about the straitjacket, I was like, if they do, we're gonna bedazzle that shit. We will not be upset if they try to lock us away because either way, like you can't. There's nothing to fear, right? Because no matter where I'm put, no matter where I am, I'm all that I'm experiencing. So it doesn't matter if I'm in a literal or a metaphorical cell. I don't have to feel trapped no matter where I'm at.
It's got you, right? Your experience. And yeah, it's really that becoming the priority, not in the sense of any sort of idea whatsoever, but there's a priority of the experience of yourself. It's like totally different and almost can seem like a unexplored spot where it's like no thoughts about like the things besides what makes sense and is obvious. It's like it's like, yeah, it's like flow state is almost the thing that just continuing to do as long as you keep doing the thing that like makes the most sense. Like it's, I don't know, easier to continue to apply it or continue to look at it. It's like there isn't so much pulling from that. But then again, it's like anything you do, there's going to be the potential to focus on some idea or have some opinion. It's that opinion again yeah, that'll create this sort of story behind it by default, and then yeah, cause you to see things in all different sorts of ways. But I know we're coming up on time here. This has been a lot of fun. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. And
And Amanda,
thanks for hopping on.
fuck yeah, that was great. You're just like, hey. And I just muted myself. You're like, hey, I'm just going to call in. And Ray's going to mute himself. Anyway, and you called in, and now you've been here for the whole goddamn episode. We saw Jackie for a bit. We chatted with Kelly. This has been a lot of fun. We're going to take a break. I'm going to go smoke a joint, and we will talk to you in 15 minutes on Patreon. Or join us tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time. We have a group Zoom. You can be on the screen. It's not an episode. at all. So it's just a group conversation, kind of a sneak peek at what we do on Patreon. So that's it for today, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. We love you. Take care.
Bye, everyone.